My name is Margaret, and I'm 62 years old. 6 months ago, I buried the love of my life after 43 years of marriage. If you've ever lost someone who was your whole world, you know that the holidays become a different kind of torture. Christmas was supposed to be about family, about coming together, about love. But that Christmas Eve, standing on my son David's porch in the bitter December cold, I learned that family isn't always about blood. Let me start from the beginning, because this story didn't begin that night. It began the day my husband Robert died, and my son decided that grief was an inconvenience he didn't have time for. Robert and I had David when I was 25. We poured everything into that boy, every dollar we earned, every ounce of energy we had, every dream we dreamed. When he wanted to go to college, we mortgaged our house. When he wanted to start his business, we gave him our savings. When he met Jessica and wanted to buy a house, we co-signed the loan and put down the down payment. 37 years of giving, of sacrificing, of putting our son's happiness before our own. After Robert's funeral, I don't know what I expected. Comfort maybe, a shoulder to cry on. Some acknowledgement that I had just lost the other half of my soul. Instead, David showed up at my house 3 days after we buried his father with a real estate agent. "Mom," he said, not even looking me in the eye, "Jessica and I have been talking. This house is too big for you now. You should downsize, maybe move into one of those senior communities. We've already found a buyer who's willing to pay cash." I stared at him, still wearing the black dress from the funeral. "David, I haven't even had time to process." "Mom, you need to be practical," Jessica interrupted, her voice sharp with impatience. "You can't maintain this place on your own, and honestly, the money from the sale would be better invested in your future care." What they didn't mention was that the house was in my name only. Robert had insisted on that years ago when we refinanced. "Everything goes to you first, Maggie," he'd said. "You take care of yourself, then worry about everyone else." I didn't tell them that, I just asked them to leave. That was October. By November, the visits became less frequent. By December, they stopped coming altogether unless they needed something, and they always needed something. "Mom, can you watch the kids this weekend? We have plans." "Mom, can you lend us $5,000? The business is having a slow month." "Mom, can you help us with the mortgage this month? Christmas is expensive." Each request came with less courtesy, more expectation. I was becoming their personal ATM, their unpaid babysitter, their errand runner. But I said yes because they were my family, and because in my grief, their presence was better than the crushing silence of my empty house. The first Christmas hint came 2 weeks before the holiday. I was at David's house, having just spent 3 hours cleaning while Jessica got her nails done and David watched football. The kids were playing video games, barely acknowledging my existence. I was putting the finishing touches on a meal I'd cooked in their kitchen when Jessica walked in, fresh from the salon. "Oh good, you're almost done," she said, checking her phone. "David's sister is coming for Christmas dinner, and we need the house to look perfect." I paused, confused. "David doesn't have a sister." Jessica laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "His sister-in-law, whatever, his brother Mark's wife. The whole family will be here, Mark, Susan, their kids, David's cousin Tom and his family. It's going to be wonderful." "That sounds lovely," I said carefully. "What time should I come over?" The silence that followed was so profound I could hear the football game commentary from the living room, the kids arguing over controllers, the dishwasher humming. Jessica's face went through several expressions: surprise, calculation, something that might have been embarrassment, before settling into cold indifference. "Oh, Margaret," she said, and I noticed she'd stopped calling me Mom months ago. "I thought you understood. This is really more of an immediate family thing. You know, spouses and children, adults only really. We're trying to keep it small and manageable." I felt something cold settle in my chest that had nothing to do with the December weather. "I'm sorry, I don't understand." David appeared in the doorway, clearly having heard the conversation. His face held that expression I'd seen more and more often lately, the look of someone dealing with an unwelcome complication. "Mom," he said, his voice carefully patient, "Jessica's right. We're trying to keep Christmas simple this year, just the core family, you understand." "But I am family," I said quietly. "I'm your mother." Jessica made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Of course you're family, Margaret, but this is really about creating new traditions, new memories with the people we're building our future with. Maybe you could start your own new traditions. There are lots of activities for seniors during the holidays." I looked at my son, this man I had raised, whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose bad dreams I had chased away, whose college tuition I had paid with money earned by working 2 jobs while his father worked 3. I looked at him and waited for him to say something, anything, that would acknowledge what she had just done. He couldn't meet my eyes. "The kids have been looking forward to this for weeks," he said finally. "And Jessica's been planning the menu for a month. Maybe next year we can figure out something that works for everyone." I dried my hands on the dish towel I had bought for their kitchen, and hung it carefully on the rack. "I see. I knew you'd understand," Jessica said brightly. "You're always so reasonable." I gathered my purse and coat, moving carefully, deliberately. Something was crystallizing inside me, something cold and hard and final. Will you need me to watch the children next weekend? Actually, yes, David said, relief evident in his voice. We have that Christmas party at the country club on Saturday. The kids love staying with you. I nodded. Of course. I drove home through streets decorated with lights and joy, past families loading Christmas trees into their cars, past children pressing their faces to store windows full of toys. I sat in my driveway for a long time before going into my house, the house where I had hosted 23 Christmas dinners, where I had wrapped countless presents for my son and later his children, where I had baked cookies and hung stockings and made magic happen year after year. That night, I called my lawyer. Robert, I need to ask you something, I said. Robert Hendricks had been our family attorney for 15 years and he'd handled my husband's estate. The house on Maple Street that David and Jessica are living in, the one we co-signed for, what exactly does that mean legally? There was a pause. Margaret, we discussed this after Robert's funeral. You insisted on maintaining the co-signer arrangement, which means you have equal legal claim to the property. In fact, given that you've been making the mortgage payments since your husband died, you could make a case for primary ownership. Why do you ask? Just wondering about my options. The next week passed in a blur of Christmas preparations that felt hollow and mechanical. I bought gifts for grandchildren who barely spoke to me, planned meals I wouldn't be invited to share, decorated a house that felt more like a mausoleum every day. On December 23rd, the day before Christmas Eve, I had to go to David's house to drop off presents. I found Jessica in the kitchen, directing a catering crew as they set up tables and arranged flowers. "Oh, Margaret," she said without looking up. "Perfect timing. Can you take these boxes up to the attic? We need the space for tomorrow." I looked at the boxes. They were full of Christmas decorations, the ones I had given them over the years. Hand-knitted stockings with their names embroidered in gold thread, the angel for their tree that had been my mother's, the advent calendar I had made by hand when David was 7. "You're not using these." Jessica glanced over, impatient. "We hired a professional decorator this year. These are just cluttered. We're going for a more sophisticated look." I carried the boxes upstairs, each one feeling heavier than the last. In the attic, surrounded by dusty memories of the life I had given them, I sat down on an old trunk and made a decision. Christmas Eve arrived gray and cold, with the kind of bitter wind that cuts through to your bones. I spent the morning cleaning my house and the afternoon cooking dinner for one, a small turkey breast, because even in my rebellion, habits die hard. At 5 o'clock, as the sun was setting and the Christmas lights around the neighborhood began to twinkle, I drove to David's house. I could see the warm golden glow spilling from their windows as I walked up the path. Through the glass, I could see people laughing, children running around, the table set with the good china I had given them as a wedding gift. The scene looked like something from a Christmas card, all warmth and joy and family togetherness. I rang the doorbell. David opened the door and his face went through a series of expressions when he saw me. Behind him, I could hear the conversation continue, oblivious to the drama about to unfold on the doorstep. "Mom," he said, stepping outside and pulling the door mostly closed behind him. "What are you doing here?" I was holding a small wrapped gift, a photo album I had made with pictures of David from birth to adulthood, every milestone, every birthday, every Christmas morning. I had worked on it for weeks, thinking maybe this would remind him of who we used to be to each other. "I wanted to give this to you," I said, "and I was hoping. I know you said family only, but I thought maybe I could just sit with you for dinner. I promise I won't stay long. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. I just don't want to spend Christmas alone." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. From inside the house, I could hear Jessica's laugh, bright and careless. I could hear children asking when they could open presents. I could hear the sounds of the family celebration I was being excluded from. David looked over his shoulder, then back at me. His face was uncomfortable, embarrassed, like I was a homeless person who had shown up asking for money. "Mom," he said finally, "we talked about this. This dinner is for family." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at this man I had given birth to, raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally for 37 years. "I am your family," I whispered. "You know what I mean," he said, impatience creeping into his voice. "This is complicated enough without. Look, maybe we can have lunch next week or something." Behind him, the door opened wider and Jessica appeared. She was wearing a red dress I had never seen before, expensive, elegant. Her smile when she saw me was sharp as winter. "Margaret," she said warmly, as if addressing a neighbor child who had shown up at an inconvenient time. "How nice to see you. I hope you're having a lovely Christmas Eve." "I was hoping I could join you for dinner," I said directly to her, because David seemed incapable of speaking. Jessica's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. "Oh, I'm so sorry. This is really only for family. I'm sure you understand, we just don't have room for everyone." "I'm David's mother," I said quietly. Of course you are, Jessica said, her voice dripping with condescension. But this is really about David's immediate family now, his wife, his children, the people who are actually part of his daily life. I'm sure you want what's best for him, and what's best is for him to focus on building his future with us. I looked past them into the house. I could see David's cousin Tom, who I had known since he was 5 years old. I could see Mark and Susan, who had been at every family gathering for 10 years. I could see children who called me grandma when they wanted something, but who were now studiously avoiding looking toward the door. So this is only for family, I said slowly. Only family, David confirmed, and there was something final in his voice. I looked at my son, really looked at him, at his expensive shirt, his styled hair, his manicured appearance. All of it paid for with money that came from the business I had helped him start, living in the house I had helped him buy, wearing the watch his father had given him before he died. I understand, I said. I held out the wrapped gift. This is for you. David took it automatically, and for just a moment his expression softened. Mom, you didn't need to. Open it, I said. He looked confused but started unwrapping the package. When he saw what it was, the photo album full of memories, his face went pale. Look at page 1, I said quietly. He opened the album. The first page had a photo of him as a newborn, tiny and red-faced, in my arms at the hospital. Underneath it, in my careful handwriting, were the words, David Michael Thompson, born December 24, 1985, 7 pounds 3 ounces, the best Christmas gift I ever received. You were born on Christmas Eve, I continued, my voice steady now. 37 years ago today, I spent 18 hours in labor, and when you finally arrived, the doctor said you were my Christmas miracle. Your father cried when he held you. We brought you home on Christmas Day, and I remember thinking that no gift would ever be as precious as the one God had given us. David's hands were shaking slightly as he turned the pages. Baby pictures, first steps. First day of school, birthday parties where I had stayed up all night making cakes shaped like dinosaurs and spaceships. Christmas mornings where I had worked overtime shifts for months to afford the gifts under the tree. Every Christmas for 37 years, I said, you have been my priority, my joy, my family, and now you're telling me that I'm not yours. Jessica stepped forward, her patience clearly wearing thin. Margaret, this is really not the time for. Be quiet, I said, and my voice carried an authority that made her mouth snap shut. I had found something in myself, something I hadn't known was there, a core of steel that had been forged in 37 years of motherhood and 6 months of grief and this final, unbearable humiliation. I looked back at David. You're right, I said, this is for family only, and I need to ask you something, son, whose name is on the deed to this house. David's face went very still. What? The deed to this house. The house where you're having your family-only Christmas dinner, whose name is on it. I could see the moment when understanding began to dawn. Behind him, Jessica was looking back and forth between us, confusion clear on her face. Mom, I don't understand why. Whose name is on the deed, David? His voice when it came was barely a whisper, yours and mine. That's right, co-signers, which means I own half this house, the house you're having your family dinner in. The house I've been paying the mortgage on since your father died because your business has been struggling. The house where you're telling me I'm not welcome because I'm not family. The color had completely drained from David's face. Jessica was staring at both of us like we were speaking a foreign language. And the car in your driveway, I continued conversationally, the one you bought last month. Where did the down payment come from? Mums, where did it come from, David? You gave us the money. I loaned you the money, from the joint account your father and I set up for emergencies, the account that still has my name on it. The account where your paychecks are direct deposited because you wanted to consolidate your finances after Dad died. I could hear the party continuing inside, oblivious to the confrontation on the doorstep. Someone was calling for David to come carve the turkey. A child was asking when they could open presents. In fact, I said, pulling out my phone, let me check our account balance right now. I opened my banking app, turned the phone so they could see the screen. Their faces went white as they saw the number, and more importantly, as they saw that I had access to everything. That's interesting, I mused. It looks like there was a charge this morning at the grocery store for $437, and another one at the liquor store for $200, and the catering bill that was paid yesterday, $850, all from our joint account, all for this family dinner that I'm not family enough to attend. Jessica found her voice first, though it came out as a croak. You can't what? Can't access my own money? Can't make decisions about my own house? Can't expect to be treated with basic human dignity by people who are spending my money and living under my roof? I took a step closer to David, and he actually took a step back. You want to know what family is, son? Family is what I've been for 37 years. Family is working 2 jobs to pay for your college while eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner. Family is co-signing for a house when you had no credit. Family is giving you the down payment for your business when the bank said no. Family is paying your mortgage when your business starts failing. Family is babysitting your children every weekend while you go out and have fun. Family is cooking and cleaning and supporting and sacrificing, over and over again, without being asked, without being thanked, without expecting anything in return except love and respect. My voice was rising now, and I could see faces appearing at the windows inside. But apparently, family is not being invited to Christmas dinner in the house you helped pay for, with food bought with money from your account, because you're not important enough to the people whose lives you've spent decades building. David was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Mom, I didn't mean. Yes, you did, I said simply. You meant exactly what you said. I'm not your family. I'm just the bank account you access when you need money. I'm just the babysitter you call when you want to go out. I'm just the old woman who used to matter but doesn't anymore. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. This is a notice to quit, I said, handing it to Jessica, who took it automatically. You have 30 days to vacate the premises. The silence was so complete I could hear the wind rustling through the bare December trees. What? Jessica's voice was barely audible. I'm exercising my rights as co-owner of this property. I'm terminating your tenancy. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. You can't do that, David said, but his voice lacked conviction. I can and I am. I spoke to my lawyer yesterday. As co-owner and as the party who has been solely responsible for mortgage payments for the past 6 months, I have every legal right to occupy the property myself or to terminate unauthorized tenancy. Jessica was staring at the notice like it was a snake. This is insane. You can't throw us out of our home. My home, I corrected gently, and I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you 30 days to make other arrangements. That's more generous than the law requires. But it's Christmas, David said weakly. Yes, I agreed. It's Christmas. The Christmas I'm spending alone because I'm not family. The Christmas you planned without me, paid for with my money in my house while telling me I don't belong. I could see the exact moment when the reality hit them. David's business was struggling. That's why I'd been making the mortgage payments. They had no significant savings because they'd been living beyond their means, subsidized by my financial support. Without this house, without my money, they had nothing. Mom, David said, and for the first time in months, his voice sounded like the little boy who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares. Please, I'm sorry, I didn't think. No, I said. You didn't think. You didn't think about what it would feel like to be discarded like an old piece of furniture. You didn't think about what it means to spend Christmas alone after 43 years of marriage. You didn't think about how it might hurt to be told you're not family by the person you gave your life to raising. Tears were running down David's face now. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please can we just… Can we what? Can we pretend this didn't happen? Can we go back to the way things were, where I give and give and give, and you take and take and take, and I'm grateful for whatever scraps of attention you throw my way? I shook my head. I spent 6 months learning to live without your father. Tonight I'm learning to live without my son. Don't say that, David whispered. Please don't say that. Then don't make it true. The door behind them opened fully, and Mark appeared, clearly having heard raised voices. Hey, is everything okay out here? Dinner's getting cold. He stopped short when he saw my face, David's tears, Jessica clutching the eviction notice. Actually, Mark, I said calmly, I'm glad you're here. I wanted to thank you for coming to the family dinner. It's so nice that David considers you family, more family than his own mother, apparently. Mark looked confused and uncomfortable. Aunt Margaret, I don't understand. Your cousin has decided that Christmas dinner is only for family and that I don't qualify, so I was just leaving. But I wanted you to know that this will be the last Christmas dinner in this house since I'll be moving back in next month. The horror on Mark's face would have been comical under other circumstances. David, what is she talking about? David couldn't speak. Jessica held up the notice with a shaking hand. Mark read it quickly, his face growing pale. Jesus Christ, David. What did you do? He told his mother she wasn't family, I said simply. On Christmas Eve, in the house she co-owns, using money from her bank account. Mark stared at David like he'd never seen him before. Are you completely insane? I didn't mean, David started. You didn't mean what? You didn't mean to tell your mother she couldn't come to Christmas dinner. You didn't mean to take her money and then slam the door in her face. Other family members were appearing now, Susan, Tom, even some of the children. The warm, festive atmosphere was dissolving into confusion and shock. What's happening? Susan asked. David just evicted his mother from the family, Mark said flatly. On Christmas Eve. The gasps and murmurs from the assembled family were audible even from the porch. I could see children looking scared and confused. I could see adults exchanging horrified glances. Is that true? Tom asked David directly. David was crying openly now. I didn't mean it like that, we wanted to keep it small. By excluding the woman who raised you, Susan's voice was sharp with disgust. The woman who just lost her husband 6 months ago. David, a voice said from inside the house, and I recognized it as David's cousin Maria, who had flown in from California. Please tell me I didn't just hear what I think I heard. The family was turning on him now, and I could see the moment when David realized what he had done, not just to me, but to himself. These people had known me for decades. They had been in my home, eaten my food, received my gifts. They knew what kind of person I was, what kind of mother I had been. I think, said Tom quietly, that maybe we should be going. No, I said, and my voice cut through the murmur of conversation. Please don't leave on my account. David wanted a family dinner and you are his family. Enjoy your meal. I turned back to David one last time. You have 30 days, I said. I suggest you use them wisely. I started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and David, the credit card you've been using, the one connected to our joint account, I've canceled it. And I've removed your access to the checking account. You'll need to figure out how to pay for all this yourself. The sound Jessica made was somewhere between a gasp and a wail. Merry Christmas, I said. I walked to my car with my head held high, though inside I was shaking. Behind me I could hear voices rising in anger, shock, confusion. I could hear David calling my name. I didn't turn around. I drove home through the Christmas Eve darkness, past houses full of warmth and light and love. But for the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel empty. I felt something I hadn't felt since Robert died. I felt powerful. I felt like myself. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by my Christmas tree, a small thing I had decorated more from habit than joy. I looked at the presents underneath, all wrapped and ready for grandchildren who might not speak to me tomorrow. I looked at the stockings hung by the fireplace, including one for David that I had hung automatically, the way I had for 37 years. The phone started ringing around 8 o'clock. First it was Mark. Aunt Margaret, I am so sorry. I had no idea. We all thought you had chosen not to come. Then Susan, Margaret, honey, we're all horrified. David told us you wanted to spend Christmas alone this year. Then Tom, I can't believe David would do that to you. Lisa, and I want you to know you're welcome at our house tomorrow. Then Maria, Aunt Margaret, I flew 2,000 miles to see family, and David didn't even tell me you weren't coming. This is disgusting. I thanked them all politely, but I declined their invitations. This wasn't about having somewhere to go for Christmas. This was about something much deeper. Around 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw David standing on my porch alone. His face was blotchy from crying, his expensive shirt wrinkled. He looked like the little boy who used to come to me when he'd made a terrible mistake. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Mom, he said, and his voice broke on the word. Please, I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I was wrong, so wrong. Please don't do this. Do what, David? The house, the money. All of it. I know I messed up, but please don't destroy our lives over one mistake. I looked at this man who had once been my whole world, who I had loved more than my own life, who had just learned the difference between power and powerlessness. One mistake, I said quietly. David, this wasn't one mistake. This was 6 months of treating me like an inconvenience, 6 months of taking my money while making me feel like a burden. 6 months of using me when you needed something and ignoring me when you didn't. But I didn't means. Yes, you did. You meant all of it. The question is, what are you going to do about it now? He stared at me, tears running down his face. What do you want me to do? I want you to understand what you did. I want you to understand that I am not your personal ATM. I am not your backup babysitter. I am not someone you can ignore until you need something. I am your mother. I am the person who gave you life, who raised you, who sacrificed for you, who loved you unconditionally for 37 years. And tonight you told me I wasn't family. I didn't mean it, but you said it. In front of your wife, in front of our family. You said it and you meant it in that moment, and that moment is what I have to live with. David was sobbing now, ugly, desperate sobs. Please, Mom, please forgive me. I'll do anything. I'll make it right. How? The question hung in the cold air between us. I don't know, he whispered. Tell me what to do. I studied his face, looking for the boy I had raised, trying to see if he was still in there somewhere. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. You're going to get your finances in order. You're going to stop depending on my money to support your lifestyle. You're going to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, the way I taught you when you were young, before you forgot what independence meant. Okay, he said quickly. Yes, okay. And you're going to really think about what kind of man you want to be, what kind of husband, what kind of father, what kind of son, because the man who was on this porch tonight is not someone I recognize. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, David. Sorry is just words. I need to see change, real change. He nodded frantically. Yes, anything. The eviction notice stands. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. His face crumpled. Mom, please. You need to learn what it feels like to be responsible for yourself, to not have someone else fixing your problems, paying your bills, cleaning up your messes. You're 37 years old, David. It's time you learned how to be an adult. But where will we go? The business is struggling. We don't have savings. Those are your problems to solve. The same way I had to solve the problem of how to rebuild my life after your father died. The same way I had to solve the problem of how to survive Christmas alone because my only child decided I wasn't worth his time. I'll fix this, he said desperately. I'll make Jessica understand. I'll make the kids understand. We'll all apologize. This isn't about apologies, David. This is about respect. This is about you understanding that love isn't just a feeling, it's action, it's showing up. It's being present, it's treating the people who matter to you like they matter to you. I stepped back, starting to close the door. Wait, he said, can I hug you? I looked at him for a long moment. This broken man on my doorstep, crying like a child, asking for comfort after causing so much pain. No, I said gently, not tonight. I closed the door and locked it, then leaned against it as I heard him walk away. Through the window, I watched him sit in his car for a long time before finally driving away. Christmas morning came gray and quiet. I made myself breakfast, real breakfast, not the quick coffee and toast that had become my routine, and sat at the table reading the newspaper. At noon, I called my sister in Arizona, and we talked for 2 hours about everything and nothing. At 3, I took a walk around the neighborhood, looking at all the houses full of families enjoying their holiday. I wasn't bitter anymore. I was sadder than I'd ever been in my life, but not bitter. There's a difference between grief and anger, and I had found my way from one to the other and somehow through to something else, clarity. The phone rang constantly throughout the day. David called 6 times, I didn't answer. Jessica called twice, her voicemails alternating between tearful apologies and threats about lawyers. I deleted them without listening all the way through. But I did answer when my grandchildren called. Grandma, Emma's voice was small and confused. Daddy said you don't want to see us anymore. My heart broke a little more. That's not true, sweetheart. I love you very much. Then why didn't you come to Christmas dinner? Daddy was crying and Mommy was yelling and nobody would tell us what happened. I closed my eyes. Sometimes adults have problems they need to work out, honey. It doesn't mean I don't love you. Are you mad at us? No, baby, I'm not mad at you at all. You didn't do anything wrong. Can we come see you? I heard Jessica's voice in the background, sharp and angry, telling Emma to hang up the phone. I love you, I said quickly. Remember that, okay? No matter what happens, Grandma loves you. The line went dead. That evening, as I was preparing for bed, I heard a car in my driveway. Through the window, I saw David getting out, but this time he wasn't alone. Emma and Jake, my 8 and 10-year-old grandchildren, climbed out of the backseat. I opened the door before they could knock. Grandma, Emma ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist. Jake hung back, uncertain, but when I held out my arm, he came too. We brought you your Christmas presents, Emma said, her voice muffled against my coat. Daddy said you might be lonely. I looked over their heads at David. His face was haggard, exhausted. Behind him, Jessica sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. Mom, David said quietly. I know you said not tonight, but the kids, they don't understand. They just know their grandma wasn't at Christmas and they're scared. I knelt down to Emma and Jake's level. Did you have a good Christmas? It was weird, Jake said honestly. Everyone was sad and Uncle Mark yelled at Daddy and Mommy cried a lot. And Daddy kept saying he was sorry, but he wouldn't tell us what for, Emma added. I hugged them both tighter. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and then we have to figure out how to fix them. Did you make a mistake, Grandma? Jake asked, out of the mouths of babes. Maybe I did, sweetheart. Maybe I made the mistake of not teaching your daddy how to treat people with kindness. David flinched as if I'd slapped him. Can we give you your presents now? Emma asked. They had made things for me, a clay handprint from Emma, a drawing of our family from Jake that notably included me right in the center. As I looked at Jake's drawing, I realized something. These children loved me. Whatever David and Jessica had done, whatever poison they might try to instill right now in this moment, these children loved their grandmother. They're beautiful, I said, thank you. We have to go, David said, his voice thick. But the kids wanted to see you. I'm glad they did. As they started to leave, Emma turned back. Grandma, are you going to be okay? I smiled at her, the first real smile I'd felt in days. Yes, sweetheart. Grandma is going to be just fine. After they left, I put the children's gifts on my mantle, right next to the pictures of Robert. Then I sat down and wrote a letter. 3 days later, David called again. Mom, we need to talk. About what? About the house, about everything. I've been thinking about what you said and, you're right, I've been treating you terribly, not just Christmas Eve but for months. I took advantage of your grief and I used you and I'm ashamed of myself. I said nothing, waiting. I found an apartment, he continued. It's small and it's not in the best neighborhood, but we can afford it without your help. Jessica's going back to work. She found a position at a marketing firm. And I'm going to make the business work without relying on your money. That's good, David. I want to pay you back. Everything you've given us since Dad died, the mortgage payments, the car down payment, all of it. It might take a while, but I want to pay you back. You don't need to. Yes, I do, and I want to do something else. I want to set up a college fund for Emma and Jake, something you can contribute to if you want, but something that's separate from our finances, so they know their education is secure no matter what. This surprised me. That's very thoughtful. Mom, I need you to know something. What I said on Christmas Eve about you not being family, it's the worst thing I've ever said to anyone. It's not true, it was never true, and I don't know how I could have been so cruel to the person who means the most to me. I felt tears starting again. David, I know I can't take it back. I know I hurt you in a way that might never heal, but I want to try to be the son you raised me to be, the son Dad would be proud of. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I heard my son really heard him. Not the entitled man who had been taking me for granted, but the boy I had raised, the person I knew he could be. I'd like that, I said softly. Would you consider having dinner with us? Not here, not at the apartment. Maybe at that restaurant you like, the one with the good soup? Just you and me and the kids. Jessica can come if you're willing, but only if you want her to. I thought about it, just you and the kids for now. Okay, yes. Whatever you're comfortable with. And David, the house situation stands. You need to learn to manage on your own. I understand, and Mom, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me completely. 2 weeks later, I sat across from my son and grandchildren in a little restaurant downtown. David looked different, thinner, more tired, but somehow more present than he'd been in months. The kids chattered about school and friends and the new apartment, and David listened to them, really listened, in a way I hadn't seen him do in a long time. Grandma, Emma said as we were finishing dessert, Daddy told us he was mean to you and that's why you were sad. Did he? He said he forgot how to be grateful, and that's a very bad thing to forget. I looked at David, who was staring at his coffee cup. Your daddy is learning to remember. Are you going to forgive him? Jake asked. I already have, sweetheart. David's head snapped up, his eyes bright with tears. But forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was, I continued, looking directly at David. It means we get to decide what comes next. 6 months later, I was sitting in my garden, the garden at my house, which I had moved back into after 30 days, as promised, when David's car pulled into the driveway. But this time he wasn't alone and they weren't coming to ask for money or favors. They were coming for Sunday dinner, the way we'd started doing again once a month. David would cook, he'd been learning, part of his journey toward independence, and the kids would help me tend to my flowers. Even Jessica came sometimes, though our relationship would probably never be what it once was. Trust once broken is hard to rebuild, but respect that had been reestablished. David paid his own bills now, he asked before he assumed. He called just to check on me, not because he needed something. He remembered my birthday without being reminded. He included me in plans instead of excluding me from them. Most importantly, he never again made me question whether I was family. As I watched Emma chase butterflies between the roses and Jake help David set up the picnic table, I thought about Robert. He would have been proud of how this story ended, not because everything was perfect, but because we had found our way back to love. Real love, built on respect and reciprocity rather than obligation and expectation. The phone rang inside the house and I went to answer it. Mrs. Thompson, this is Maria Rodriguez from the Senior Community Center. We got your application to volunteer with our family mediation program. Yes, we'd love to have you. Your personal statement was particularly moving about helping families navigate difficult transitions and communication breakdowns. When can you start? I smiled, looking out at my family gathered in the garden. How about next week? Sometimes the worst thing that happens